great speakers for the night. So yeah, good afternoon, guys. So as you notice, muted. Everyone seems to be muted. We decided it this way. We only have the speakers unmuted and me, special kasi ako. So and the speakers. This way we won't be like the presidential debate last week. No, we have to be more presidential than that. No one will be talking over another. So, but later on we'll have a chance to have some questions and answers. We'll give chance for some people to speak up. But for now, everybody will just have to listen, and then we'll have the two of our speakers will be sharing us a lot of things. But yeah, thank you for that. We got a guest from Canada, from West Coast, East Coast, from Philippines. So international type ngayon. So we're very thankful that you decided to join us. Let me first introduce to you our group. I think it's important that I tell you about our group. It's Ateneans for Social Justice. We started this just a couple of months ago, if you remember what happened to George Floyd. So it started there because of the Black Lives Matter movement. It was so big, and we realized we were compelled to respond when that happened. There's some big changes happening. People are protesting, but we realize a lot of people are joining these protests, supporting these protests, all walks of life, people from different races, colors, countries. But where's the Asian Americans? Where's the Filipino? The Philippines. So, look, parang kulang eh. Parang the Filipinos, the Filipino Americans or Filipinos overseas seems to be not responding. In general, merong mga bata naman, the young people are participating. But it seems like hindi masyadong involved ang Filipino Americans, Filipino overseas. So we felt compelled na maybe we have to do some self-examinations. Why are we like this? Is it because of racism, our own prejudice as well? Why are our parents and grandparents have so much prejudice against the black? Is that the reason why? So because of that, we decided to have Zoom events, Zoom talks. So we have one that talks about history, our own history, our psychology, things like that. So this is number 8. Is that right? Number 8. And we thought of social. I mean, thought we thought of mass media because it's one of the biggest influence for Filipinos. Filipinos try to connect to our motherland and try to adopted home by reading a lot and getting it in touch with through social media, through mass media. So when we talk about media, we actually meant mass media. So the Filipinos, if you're not familiar yet, do you know that the Filipinos are the busiest Facebook users in the world? We are. So we're so much influenced by mass media. And when we talk about mass media, we talk about radio, television, newspapers, all those things. And now the social media. That's one of the biggest things. So as we try to inspect the influence of mass media to us, to our own perception and attitude, uh, we thought maybe it's the best time to talk about it, especially nowadays. Especially nowadays, the media. I was talking to Mr. Melegrito earlier. The mass media before, the mass media now, they're quite different. Much credible now before, but now have mixes of fake news and all of that, and then was it yesterday the White House and the Republicans were complaining about the Facebook and Twitter for censoring some information. So do we are we in favor of censorship, or if not, are we allowing these people to spread fake news and all that? So, with that said, we have two of the most credible speakers. We have two pillars of journalism and mass media, and we are thankful that they accepted our invitation. So is Miss Jella in already? Let's see. Just wait for Miss Jella, see if she's already in. Okay. Okay. Okay, while waiting for Miss Jell, let me introduce to you one of our speakers, Mr. John Melegrito. Okay, Mr. John Melegrito is a veteran of journalism himself. He has been here in the U.S. since 1965. He's been writing since the time of Marcos in the Philippines. So he himself is a wealth of information, and we can listen to him and ask him questions later. He's son of a USFA veteran who served under General MacArthur and who ensured the Bataan Death March. So he's dedicated to the Filipino American veterans and to the Filipino Americans in general. He was well recognized and awarded for his work for veterans and for Filipino Americans and for social justice. He was busy as a community activist for many years. He was the first executive director of National Federation of Filipino American Association, founded in 1997. He also worked for International Labor Union, for George Washington University as advisor to Philippine Cultural Society. And now that he's retired, he still volunteers for Philippine American Foundation for Charities and for Tanghalang Filipino as executive director and is editor of Manila Mail. So thank you for joining us, Mr. Melegrito. And hold on. Yeah, Miss Jell is trying to come in, so we're just waiting for her for a while. Sorry, folks.
We apologize for the technical difficulty. This also happened in our previous Zoom event. One of our speakers could not get in, and so we had a three-way presentation through the phone, and somebody was clicking the PowerPoint. So it was quite an enterprise, and we had practice about this problem. Melanie, you're smiling. You remember?
Of course. Yeah, it's a team effort, so whatever works. So we'll go on with the show. So, it's okay to make changes in the flow, and then of course, Bong, we can get started with Mr. Melegrito if that's okay, and then we'll figure out how to get Gel into the call.
Okay, sir. Yeah, Miss Jo is still trying to come in, but we don't want to waste some time kasi if this might be a long night uh, for discussion. So, sir, Mr. Melegrito, you can start sharing to us what you thought of the questions I had given you and other things you want to share to us.
Well, thank you, Bong, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with. Well, I think Gel just came in, so do you want to go ahead and start with Gel? She just came in.
Hi, Miss Jel. Thank you.
Hi.
Yan.
Hello.
Yeah. Are you ready to talk? You want to still breathe, or we can have a Mr. Melegrito speak first? Or...
Oh, okay. So, sorry. Ngayon lang ako nakapasok sa connection, and I'm really very honored to be invited to participate in this discussion with our kapamilyas and all kababayans in wherever we are, right? We're covering Filipinos here in the United States, also in the Philippines, hindi ba, Bong?
Right. Okay. Since you're here now, Miss Jel, sir, so we start. Is it okay to start with you, or you want Mr. Melegrito?
Oh, whatever the group desires, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Okay. So I introduced the people to the group why we have this session, why we talk about social media. When we talk about media, we really actually means social media. I mean mass media, including social media, which influence on us. Why it's very important. But I told you everything about it already. But let me introduce Gel, Miss Gel or Ate Gel. Most of you know her, no need for a lot of introduction. But for those young ones or those who were born here in the U.S., Miss Gel Santos was the original queen of mass media back in the Philippines.
Sobra ka naman.
1990s. Through media, hindi showbiz. She was the voice and face. She was an instructor of broadcast communication. In fact, John Nukum and several people here were former students of Miss Gel.
Yes, and we worked together.
I think we have a former classmate. Ah, you did. Okay. Product of UP, he became a household name in the Philippines back in the 80s and 90s. As a TV and radio news anchor and host for several talk show hosts like Patak Filipino and Compañero y Compañera. She moved to US in 2001, is that correct? 2001?
2001.
And 2001. But just after a few years of resting, she got called to service again, and she was in Balitang America as a newscaster at the TFC PBS studio. But now she's a columnist of Asian Journal Communication. So she's been with us, connecting us Filipino Americans to what's happening in the country, the Philippines, and what's happening here. Very informative, making us very helpful. That's why she's Kapamilya. She's our family. She's Ate. And I'm so honored that she accepted our invitation. So here she is, Miss Jel Santos Veloso. Ate Jel, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
yours.
Do I start? Okay yung ano ko, audio at saka video. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So do I start?
Yes.
I didn't get the first part of your ano. So the introduction and I'll start now. Okay. Yes, please thumbs up kasi may delay ang ano eh. May delay. Yan. All right. Okay. So magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Lahat tayo ngayon, mga Pilipino, saan mang sulok ng daigdig, ay naharap sa napakalaking mga pagsubok. Hindi ba? Sa kalusugan natin, sa ating pakikitungo sa isa't isa. And malaki ang papel na ginagampanan po ng mass media pagdating dito. Para bang pag iniisip mo ngayon, parang nagkaroon tayo ng social media, excited tayong lahat kasi, wow, parang empowered tayo dahil nakakakuha tayo ng information when we need it because of online, di ba? Internet. And at the same time, nung dumating ang social media, we are also given the power to be able to participate in different discussions. Kahit na saang sulok man tayo ng daigdig nandoon, kahit ba ito mapa Facebook, mapa Twitter, at kahit ano pa mang plataforma. But then again, as we are experiencing what is going on right now, and instead of us being more united, it seems that when it comes to politics, we become more divided because of this. So medyo balikan natin ang kasaysayan ng mass media before, especially news media. No? Briefly, naalala niyo pa ba noon na ang meron lang sa atin dyaryo? Di ba? Abangan mo yun sa umaga, yung dyaryo. Abangan natin yon. At nung nag-level up na tayo sa teknolohiya, nagkaroon na ng radyo. Yung radyo, unlike newspaper, hindi na naghihintay yan ng publication, right? Yung press time kung tawagin. So mas instantaneous yun at lalong-lalo na nagkaroon ng television. So why am I bringing this up? Because of yung pagiging instantaneous niya, yung pagiging fast, breaking news and all of this, nagkaroon ng epekto ngayon sa ating preparasyon kung paano tayo magiging gatekeeper pagdating sa news and information na nakukuha natin sa mass media. During the time of the newspapers, nag-meeting na ngayon ang mga editors, di ba, reporters, and ano yung nangyayari ngayon sa lipunan? Ano yung mga naririnig natin mula sa ating mga sources, sa mga lead? And then we have time to really verify, get more information. Dahil lahat tayo, lalabas yung balita pagdating ng umaga. Di ba? Naalala niyo yung panahong yun. And then later on, nung nagkaroon na ng radyo, ganun pa rin naman ang siste dahil meron pa rin time because radio usually meron tayong morning news, noontime, news break, and also sa television. Pero nung nagkaroon ng cable news, nagkaroon ngayon ng 24/7 news cycle. Ang laki ng pagkakaiba dahil all of us would want to be able to get what is going on. And dumami na rin yung mga news outlet sa cable news. So, unahan ngayon. Yung dati-rate na kailangan magpapas yan sa rigorous examination and diligence when it comes to verification of the truth and the facts, na hindi na yan dumadating ngayon. Palagi na lang na, we have to be first. Di ba? Napansin niyo yung breaking news. And then we will hear, we cannot yet independently verify. Pero, eto, kasi lumalabas na. Lumalabas na hindi lamang siya sa mga major networks, hindi lamang sa mga cable news, kundi because of social media. Ang bilis-bilis na yan na nagkakaroon ngayon ng spread of information. It's good if it is the right information. It is good if it is the accurate information. Because of that, we'll be able to really make quick decisions if we have to. Pero papaano kung yung balitang yan ay galing sa hindi lehitimong source? Kung balitang yan ay twisted, ayon na rin sa political agenda ng ibang tao. Lalong-lalo na kung ito ay ang gobyerno. Doon nagkaroon ng effect ang social media and ang internet pagdating sa misinformation. And that was proven in the 2016 election, hindi pa. It was proven through our US agencies that Russia tried to infiltrate and fielding us with fake news. And yun naman na ngayon ang pinapakala to help Trump win and to paint a bad picture of Hillary Clinton. And the sad news is that it is happening again over and over again right now. Pagkatapos yung news pa na lumalabas, hindi lang basta news eh. Kundi lumalabas ngayon yung mga memes. Napansin nyo this political cycle. Yung mga memes naglalabasan na. And sasabihin lang kung ano yung sensational headline. Tapos nandun yung mga mukha ng mga tao na galit, lumalaban. Yung very tabloid ang dating ng nakikita nating mga meme ngayon. Now, because meron na tayong kanya-kanyang mga siguro biases, hindi naman nawawala ang biases sa tao, di ba? Ang nangyayari, kiniklik na lang natin, share, 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 without even verifying it because it is in consonance with our own political views. Do you agree so far? Do we have that kind of observation? I got some questions saying that, so what do you do? What do you do as people now in media? Are we obligated to say something about it? Are we obligated to censor when it comes to that? Before we go back to that question, there is a study by Pew Research. Who are the watchers of Fox News? Well, it appears the kind of people that we are and the kind of decisions that we make and beliefs that we keep is directly related to the news media that we consume. Those who watch Fox News, they only watch Fox News. At least 9 out of 10 Fox News viewers just stay and watch Fox News. In contrast, the Democrats, the independents, nagsusurf yan. They would watch Fox News, they would watch CNN, they would watch ABC, CBS, NPR, yung mga ganon. So, because of that, you are more exposed to different kinds of reporting. Different facts na pwedeng meron dito, wala dito. And so as a critical thinker, you would say, teka nga muna, bakit ito sinasabi dito sa maraming mga news organization? Bakit sa Fox News hindi? They wouldn't know that because 9 out of them, 10, nandun lang sila sa Fox News. So yung mundo nila, yung alternate universe nila is shaped by their media exposure to Fox News. In contrast, ang mga Democrats and independents hindi. Of course, minsan din may mga Fox News na nagpupunta doon sa other news network just to be mad at themselves and say, oh, talaga mga sinungaling yung mga yan because it doesn't jive with the narrative of President Trump and it does not jive with what Fox News is reporting. So having said that, how do we help ourselves battle against fake news? Because there's also another study by Pew Research that said people who watch only cable news, especially Fox News, are the least informed people. Mas mabuti pa yung hindi nanonood ng news. Kasi I think ang point noon is it is more dangerous for us to be loading our minds with something that is not factual because that affects how we make decisions. So having said that, how do we do that? How do we guard ourselves against fake news? Ang unang-una nating dapat gagawin ay titignan natin yung news source, 'di ba? Kunyari meme siya, hirap ng meme, 'di ba? Wala kang makitang diretsahan eh. Tingnan nyo agad, i-Google nyo agad kung meron pa bang ibang mga corroborating na sources para dito sa information na pinapakita nitong meme na to. Very catchy kasi ang meme, ang daling i-share, ang daling basahin. Isa pa yung sa nakakalungkot ngayon, tamad nang magbasa ang tao. Diba? So that's what we do. We have to check on what is being stated in the meme or in the article, if it's an article, or on the sensational headlines. We Google that and see if they're corroborating sources for that. And kung may sources na corroborating, kasi napansin ko rin to makikita mo, ano tong mga sources na to? Parang ngayon ko lang nakita. Hindi siya yung mga major international news organization na nagko-cover niyan. So we have to be wary about that too. Because again, nandun na rin yung fact na nag-infiltrate na ang Russia sa pagbibigay sa atin ng mga misleading information. So that is the challenge now for us all. Dahil hindi na lamang ngayon ang mga newspaper editors, television editors, news directors, ang siyang nagbibigay ng desisyon kung ano ba ang accurate o hindi. Dahil ang bilis ng pumasok ngayon and nababasa, instantaneous na kukuha agad ng tao. Mali o tama. So it is upon us now, because we're not just now consumer of news. When we share something, we become a source of news or a channel for the source of news. So it is a solemn, sacred obligation for us all. Kahit ano pa yung natin, ano pa yung kinikilikan natin, bias natin, ideology natin, is to always resort and fight for the truth. Which brings me to the question I'm always asked. Bakit ka biased? I always get that now. Because since I left Balitang America, I am more in the position now to talk, not as a news anchor, but as a citizen. Wala na yung limitation na dahil nire-represent ko daw ang Balitang Amerika, dapat hindi ako mag-choose ng side. But I realize now, even if that is my role, and especially now that I am an opinion writer, we have to be biased. Do not apologize for being biased. We have to be biased in favor of the truth. Because it's only the truth that would really guide all of us in making informed and conscientious decision. So meron ngang analogy dyan Sinabi na halimbawa ng mga tao na, si Trump na lang, sinabi niya halimbawa na, no, hindi, mawawala agad yung COVID na yan. O kaya we're fighting to mitigate the spread. Pero iba yung ginagawa. What do? Do you say, sabi ni Trump, nag-wear siya ng mask, sabi ni Trump, ito yung ginagawa ng gobyerno niya. But what do we do? Alam nating mali. Yung sa pang-araw-araw na buhay na lang, para masimple. Pag sinabi ng isang tao sa atin na, umuulan sa labas, tingin ka sa labas. Hindi naman umuulan, maaraw naman. Do you spread that? Dahil ang nagsabi noon gobyerno. Siyempre, meron din tayong sariling wisyo. What's happening right now is that they are spreading double talk, double speak, na pag ini-interview kasi si Trump halimbawa, he will be very ambiguous. I don't know if you noticed that. He would be very ambiguous. He would say, for example, yung sa interview sa kanya ni Guthrie kahapon, did you get tested just before the event? Ano siya? Parang maybe I got tested, maybe no. What is that? It's either you got tested or not, di ba? Did you disavow white supremacists? Sabihin niya, I disavow white supremacists, but there are also very good people in both sides. After na nagkamatayan na yan. Do you disavow the Proud Boys? Sabihin lang niya, standby lang kayo dyan mga iho. So yun yung double speak. Kasi ngayon, gagawing arm yun ng mga follower niya na dinidisavow naman niya, di ba? Kino-condemn naman niya ang racism. Bakit ganon? Now, it is the anchor or the news people's obligation to make this government official be clear about their stand and issues. Right? So maganda yung paulit-ulit mong itatanong. Pag hindi klaro, paulit-ulit mo. Kaso ang problema, pag naging ganon ka, sasabihin na sa'yo, you're biased against the president. But in fact, what we are all fighting for and what we should all be fighting for is the truth, regardless of what your ideology is. Because at the end of the day, if you cannot trust your president, the ideology, the programs, the policies will not matter, di ba? Nung panahon ni Obama, I did not feel the need to state my stand on ideological debate. I let Rudy Asercion, Rodel Rodis, the speakers for both parties to debate among themselves, and I'm just there as a moderator. Because I did not have a problem with Obama stifling the free press or discrediting us. Pero ngayon iba na, at saka nagsisinungaling na yung presidente. So there's already a question of trustworthiness of character. And if that is not a settled thing, if you cannot trust the character, the sincerity and honesty of your elected officials, then we're doomed. So that's why we have the media, we have the news media. We have to pressure, we have to call out falsehoods. And that involve not only the news media that we see on TV, that involves all of us eh. Kasi lahat tayo gatekeepers na rin ng katotohanan, di ba? Gatekeepers tayo ng katotohanan. But yun na nga, ang challenge naman natin ngayon is, how do we share the truth? Kasi andyan na, nakikita na nila, napanood na nila si Trump na ito yung sinasabi, susunod na araw, ito yung sinasabi, hindi nagja-jive sa katotohanan. Ang resulta, more than 215 Americans have died because of this. Because he chose to tell a lie. He chose to downplay it for his own political expediency because he wants to get reelected. So that's the big challenge for us because marami ng indoctrination na nangyari for those people who are just watching, halimbawa, Fox News. I know a lot of good people, they mean well. And a lot of them also, it's driven by their faith, their religion. Kaya minsan, hindi bali ng niloloko tayo ni Trump, pero sa Republican Party kasi siya. So kailangan supportahan natin siya. There are a lot of good people in the Republican Party who have now rejected the re-election bid of Trump because they now see that Trump does not represent their values anymore. It's a totally different Republican Party. It's not anymore the party of Lincoln. It's not anymore the party that would, follow the rule of law. Kasi di ba yun yung pinaglalaban dati ng mga Republicans? It's totally different. So that's our challenge, especially so because 9 out of those 40% who support Trump up to now, they are watching Fox News. 9 out of 10 of them. So it's hard to get into that dahil meron sila agad na sagot na meme, may sagot agad sila na alternative news coming from, again, their news sources. Fox News, Breitbart, di ba? One America One Media, di ba? Yung mga conservative that I myself do not trust. So maybe that's one thing that we can also discuss. How do we share the truth that is shared by legitimate news organization? How? Because we can only make a wise decision this November if we are guided by the truth. How do we share that? And I want to hear from you regarding that. So, pause muna tayo for that. Masyado na. And I'd like people to, share their own perspective when it comes to that. I'm just sharing my own perspective, having part of the news organization, having also been an opinion editor or opinion writer. And I was also a commentator when I was in the Philippines. So I want to hear from you and probably some questions, clarifications. And also from John, a very, very influential and really pro-people community leader.
Okay. Yeah, we'll turn the stage to Mr. John Melegrito. Sir, so Mr. Melegrito, as I mentioned earlier, he's been here in the U.S. since 1965. He's been writing and working for Filipino Americans since the time of Marcos. So meron siyang I guess older perspective, what was like before the social media and all those things. So let's listen to Sir John Melegrito. Unmute, sir.
Thank you, Bong, and thank you, Jel. I'm a big fan of yours,
Oh, thank you.
and I know I followed your career. I know you come to DC every year to host
Yes.
the People's Ball. You know, hundreds of Kapamilya, you know, always look forward to you coming to DC. And unfortunately, because of COVID, you have not been able to visit us. You know, I'm really impressed with your presentation. I have nothing else to add because you really covered very adequately. I just want to reiterate that you're absolutely right. You know, Facebook and Google are now the gatekeepers of information. That's resulted in a lot of fake news and disinformation. And Filipinos, unfortunately, are cut off. They're cut off from rational and factual discourse. They support Trump because they are living in what somebody called a hermetically sealed disinformation bubble that is impermeable to reality. I mean, that's really alarming, right? And you mentioned Fox News, which is, you know, I go to my barber shop once a month, and the TV is always tuned into Fox News. You know, this is a Filipino barber shop. And I try to convince the owner, you know, Manong Ray, palitan mo naman yung channel sa Fox News. And he doesn't want to change it. And this is the reality. It allows fake news to be spread more readily. And of course, as Jal said, Trump gives it the imprimatur of the White House when he spreads these lies. I mean, it's bad enough that Trump lies so much. What's worse is that so many think he's telling the truth. Because, you know, if you spread the same lies 100 times, it becomes the truth. And as Jal said, it plays into our biases, our values, our belief systems. I mean, even these conspiracy theories, you know, this QAnon conspiracy,
Yes.
which is very dangerous, right? And for the president to validate them, to give credibility to these conspiracy theories, not to mention inciting, you know, terrorist groups, right? Right-wing groups to show up at polls to intimidate voters. I mean, that's really the danger that we're facing. And I think we as a community needs to address this so that we can at least find a way to minimize, you know, the impact of this, you know, to our community. So thank you, Jal, for presenting what I think is a very impressive overview and also articulating very profoundly the challenges that we face. You know, I just want to say that our young people today are very, very much involved in media literacy, right? And Joel started to mention this, you know, how do we distinguish between fake news and real news, right? So they're actually holding webinars, you know, these high school students, I mean, 15-year-olds, right? They're so much committed to teaching their parents, you know, how to distinguish between fake news and real news. And I applaud them for the initiative in holding these webinars, these virtual seminars. You know, thank God for COVID. We have more opportunities for having Zoom meetings now, right? We're becoming zombies, you know, for having all of these opportunities. But I really salute them for engaging not only their peers, but also their parents in really distinguishing how they consume media. So I'll leave it there, and I hope others will engage as well in this question.
You know, you mentioned, I'm
Thank you,
sorry,
sir.
I may just add, you mentioned about parents, and that's also the beauty and the challenge at the same time. Especially the kids now, they're more savvy when it comes to the use of technology.
Right.
But they
Absolutely.
also bring in a perspective that is very, very important. In the same way that we too have our voice, so that all of us will see it from different points of view. And of course, the youth, they're the movers of civilization. Sila yung mga lumalaban pag may mga dati revolusyon. Hindi naman tayo eh. Tayo, we're more, kasi sabi nga nila eh, usually daw ang buhay ng tao, you're idealistic, you fight, and then you realize the truth about living, And then now mahirap ang buhay, marami kang babayaran, and then suddenly you become a Republican when it comes to fiscal. Okay. But now hindi na eh. Ibang-iba na ngayon eh. And also, it's also, I think, important for us to admit, ewan ko, I'll speak for myself. I may be a Democrat, but there are certain aspects of the Republican program that are sensible and you want to agree with. It's just so happened na kailangan tayo mamili ng party affiliation so we can be better engaged in the political process. Pero wala naman siguro 100% ka na ito lang talaga yung gusto mo eh. Meron ka pa rin nakikita na buti dun sa binibigay sa table ng kabilang partido. I think that's also the beauty of a democracy, di ba? Kasi we learn how to engage with each other based on issues, based on what's the problem, what can be the best solution for this problem. Kaya lang, ang problema rin natin, the moment, because of the division created by Trump especially, of course, dati na namang may division eh. Pero na-exacerbate yan because he himself is doing that. He's attacking the person and not talking about the issue. And if you talk ill about him, ano yan? Gera na yan, di ba? So naging very personalistic ang discourse ngayon, hindi nyo napansin, di ba? Hindi na so much on eto yung pros and cons para sa atin, ganon. So I think that's also part of the challenge that we have, that we need to face and also listen, multi-generational perspective about what's going on, especially for the young ones because sila ang magmamana nitong lipunan natin, di ba? So hopefully they are able to stand on our shoulders. Sabi nga, di ba, naririnig natin, the goal of America is always to make it a more perfect union. But right now we're being divided and cannot even talk to each other based on issues. So let's listen to one another.
Ma'am Jill and Sir John, several participants tonight are actually from Philippines, and that's my personal question. Is the experience in the Philippines quite kind of similar to what's happened here in the U.S. under Duterte? And for you, Sir John, you were there writing since the time of Marcos. So what could you say during the time of Marcos, the censorship then? And is there any advice or any thoughts that you had coming from that era?
Yes, I'm glad you raised the question about how the media actually shaped people's behavior during the Marcos period. As Jel said, before social media became part of, dominated our lives, at the time, you have very credible sources. You go to the New York Times, the Washington Post, or CBS or NPR. So there was a commonly agreed upon facts, right? There was no question about when CBS or NPR or New York Times reports the abuses of Marcos, nobody disputes it, right? Or so when the networks covered, let's say, the congressional hearings in Congress about human rights, and they're reported in headlines the next day, people accepted them as facts. So when Jel said earlier about how we engage each other in conversations, it was so much easier, and ironically, it was so much easier then because we had an agreed set of facts, right? Marcos, military repression, the human rights abuses, the killings, the salvagings, the excessive extravagance of Imelda. We can actually have a set of facts we can agree on, and then we can debate, right? So that was the beauty of having a credible news source where there's no disputing their credibility, their credence, their authenticity, right? But today, of course, as Jel said, it's hard to engage because you are bombarded with confusion and you don't know what to believe, right? So that's really the challenge today. So when you mentioned Duterte, and I think Maria Ressa really did a good job in explaining why Duterte's popularity remains high, because social media has really promoted all this disinformation, that he's a strong man, he's promoting all these efforts to eradicate drugs, I mean, you know, the hype because of social media, and of course, it's hard hundreds of trolls, right? To post all of these very favorable comments about what Duterte is doing, which the same thing here with Trump, right? In fact, it's interesting that they did that experiment, all this, you know, this Facebook in the Philippines when Duterte was running for president. They actually did that in the Philippines, and when it succeeded, remember, Duterte was one of 5 candidates, and he didn't even win like 40% of the vote, even lesser than that. But then all of a sudden, he's popular, right? But that was exactly how insidious and how effective all that social media, you know, hacking and the disinformation campaign, and they transplanted that here in the U.S. And they actually effectively used that in the 2016 campaign that led to Trump's victory. So yes, there are a lot of parallels with the Duterte administration and the way they handled government, and the same thing here with Trump. And of course, we know who the foreign actors are. I'm sure Russia is just as much active in the Philippines as they are active here.
All right, thank you, sir.
If I may add a little to that, another problem with that is this unfolding of non-facts is being weaponized and used to revise history.
Right.
Look what's going on. Pinatalsik ang pamilyang Marcos noong 1986. Ngayon, balik na naman sila sa gobyerno. And you can see on social media the move now to glorify the Marcos era. Na para nawala na bigla yung mga yung mga extrajudicial killing, yung repression of the press, nawala lahat yun eh. Kasi iniiba nila, nire-revise. Parang yung ginagawa din ni Trump using for the pandemic, the task force, right? So he's using that to change the narrative na hindi, this is what I did then. When in fact, hindi naman talaga. So again, it's adding layers of challenges to us as gatekeepers. I keep on insisting that we are all gatekeepers because we are. Kung sino man yung friends nyo sa Facebook, pag meron kayong pinost dyan, nakaka-apekto yon sa discourse somehow, for the better or for the worse, for clarity or more ambiguity, depending on what your true intention is. But again, sometimes I check myself on that. Parang kay Judge Sumalangit nawa. Si Justice Ruth na noong timing naman kung kailan siya umalis, di ba? Talagang But sinasabi niya kasi, imagine nyo isa sa mga babae na una sa Supreme Court, di ba? Ang mga kinakabaka niya noon mga lalaki, na iba ang perspective. Pero during her time, ang dami niyang mga naipasa for women's rights and protection. Pursuant to the provision of the Constitution that all men are created equal. Nagawa niyan lahat yon, lahat ng mga na-enjoy nating benefits ngayon. Because of, ang sabi niya ganon, because ayaw niyang, alam mo yon, I'd like to, parang sinasabi niya, I'm paraphrasing here na, umbisahan mo na may good intention yung tao. Kasi minsan, tao din tayo kasi, di ba, napipikon tayo. Kaya sasabihin na natin, parang ang tatangan nyo, bakit hindi kayo, sometimes we resort to that kasi siguro bombarded na tayo ng ganong klase ng rhetoric these days, di ba? Yung mga engagement, tapos yung mga branding na yung mga Democrats, yung mga ganong klaseng branding, or Dutertards, ang dami na, o kaya yellow tards. So, pag may brand ka na, nakakahon na yun eh. Nawala na yung decency mo, integrity mo, and humanity dahil nilagay ka na sa kahon. So, in as much as ayaw nating maggawa sa atin yon, let's also check on ourselves. Kasi minsan, pag napikon ka na talaga, ang tendency rin natin is maging ganon. So, let's try to also contemplate on the advice of Justice Ruth. And sabi niya nga always begin with the assumption that the other person means well. Do not doubt the intention of the other person. And then look for ways by which you have commonality. Saan kayo nagkakaisa? Anong aspeto ng diskusyon kayo nagkakaisa? And then see how you can go from there. Kaya, si Scalia, di ba, nawala na rin siya. Ano sila? They're friends. Hindi nawawala yung respeto kasi nila sa isa't isa. Pero ngayon, hindi natin alam. Ano yung effect? Di ba kasi dati ganun eh. Yung presidente kasi mismo nangunguna sa pambabastos sa ibang tao. Kaya tuloy, na-embolden yung mga ibang tao na gano'n na rin magsalita. Kasi kahit sa Pilipinas, di ba, pag nagmumura ka, pag dilalait-lait mo yung mga tao, para ba, uy, authentic siya. The mark of a strong man. On the contrary, I beg to differ. Kasi wala kang self-restraint eh. Anong strength doon? The pinakamahirap mong makonquer yung sarili mo eh. Agree? Di ba?
Yeah.
Yung kailangan magpapakatotoo. So again, layer din yun sa atin because we're not saints. We're human being and we're affected by the discourse, by what's happening now in society. So how do we keep it? Yung sinasabi ni Michelle Obama, di ba? When they go low, let's try to go high. Kasi kung pareho na tayo, parang sa buboyan lang yan, na nagsuswimming din tayo sa same putik, di ba? So that's again, it's easier said than done, pero bahagi yan ng ng challenge natin ngayon as citizens, as people in our discourse on social media.
Yeah, it's okay lang ba? Almost 6 na, ma'am, and Mr. Melegrito. Okay lang to stay a little longer, or you need to do something else? Or?
And if there some more questions, I'm okay.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. So, good. So, we'll open the floor. I guess, konti lang man tayo, okay lang to unmute everybody. And so, who's ready to ask question? I think Mr. Nukum has a question. So, we can let Mr. Nukum speak and ask question or make a comment. And then everybody can follow too, or you can write in the chat box too, and I can read it. Okay, sir.
Thank you, Sir Bong. I'm glad that I'm reunited with my teacher. It seemed I missed the past years na ako ay kanyang mag-aaral at umuulit yung classroom discussion niya. Anyway, I'd like to start with yung sinasabi niyang everyone now is a gatekeeper. And one effect that I see is that everyone now has his own truth. So, parang pag hindi truth ko, yours is not true. So, ang nagiging challenge niyan, nagiging effect that I see is polarization ng mga tao. Hindi lang dito sa Amerika, sa atin din sa Pilipinas. At how can we reconcile having the truth while polarized sa mga tao? I hope I can be, may marinig tayo na Ma'am Jel at kay Mr. Melegrito on that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. Sa akin, truth should be non-negotiable eh. Diba? Facts should not be negotiable. Hindi yan dapat nakukulayan ng ano ba yung aking dyan o ano. Kung ano talaga nangyari, yun ang isiwalat. So kung mawawalan ka ng kaibigan, ang unfriend, so be it. Kasi eventually naman, basta wag ka lang ikaw yung mga attack. Siguro that's what we have control on eh. Yung the way we discourse, and then we just present the truth. Hindi yung dahil gusto mong, kunyari sa akin, sabihin sa akin ng mga followers ko, ganyan ka pala kay unfollow. Okay. Sabi ko, bye. Diba? Kasi yung ibang tao, they want to please everybody. But why will you deny the truth? In fact, we are doing people a disservice if we bend over kung alam naman natin kasinungalingan yon. So siguro, We cannot change the truth. That is their truth because they're watching Fox News. So anong gagawin natin? Let's stick to our truth. And just share respectfully kung ano yung ano, share the site, the different, kaya ako pag kunyari, may oras ako to engage people, I will share the different news sources, hindi lang CNN. Ito rin sinasabi ng BBC. Ito rin ang sinasabi. So, may multiple sources ka na iisa lang ang sinasabi nilang kwento. Ang challenge mo doon kasi, pag sinabing mainstream media, fake news agad yon sa mundo ni Trump. So yun ang challenge sa atin. So I don't know, June, if I'm answering your question. So we cannot, wala tayong control sa pag-iisip nila. May control tayo sa sarili nating pag-iisip at kung paano natin binabahagi ang katotohanan ng alam natin. So let's stick to the facts, and let's try not to name call. Pero pag kunyari, nagiging toxic na yung discourse, we also have the right to stop it. Because we also do not want people naman, kunyari sa sarili nyong wall, maglalagay sila ng fake news doon. Diba? I think it's just like your house eh. Kunyari, may magpo-post sa Facebook ko ng, I will call him out for it. Diba? Pero pag hindi pa nakikinig sa reason, ay binablock ko na. Kasi binibigyan lang niya ng dumi yung discourse eh. Na alam naman natin na mali yung sinasabi, hindi totoo. I don't know if you agree with that. Ngayon, ito nga yung malaking debate ngayon eh. Because Twitter and Facebook, di ba? Parang they're trying to control the spread of this another conspiracy theory nila na binubuhay kay Hunter Biden. Na una-una, hindi naman siya yung tumatakbo. Si Joe Biden naman yan tumatakbo. Pero yung gano'n eh, let's try to put things in perspective. Whom should we make accountable? Di syempre yung dalawa. Di kung pag gano'n, si Trump, ang dami niya kailangan ipaliwanag sa bayan, di ba? So, and then we cannot naman. Kung buo na yung utak nila pagdating doon. I think it suffice na sinabi natin yung alam nating katotohanan, and these are our proof. Pag ayaw nilang that's their choice eh. Meron silang sarili din pag-iisip. Ang kailangan nating paliwanagan ay yung mga bukas pa yung isip, yung mga undecided, yung tuliro pa kung ano talaga yung nangyayari. Kasi sabi nga, may isang kwento nga dyan na this is a true story. Yung daw, nung mom yata niya, may cable news pa sila, puro Fox News ang pinapanood. They're pro-Trump. Nung natanggal na yung cable nila, so na lang napapanood nila will be the regular channels, right? Na ABC, CBS, ganyan. So after channel shifting, sinasabi niya, naging anti-Trump siya. Naging anti-Trump. Kasi nakikita niya na puro lies pala yung naririnig ko dati. Nakakakita siya ngayon ng parang Rapunzel. Naalala niyo yung kay Rapunzel? Dahil kinulong siya nung Wicked Witch dun sa taas ng tore. Kaya ang concept lang niya ng mundo ay kung ano yung sinasabi sa kanya. Nung dumating si Prince Charming, nalaman niya na hindi pala totoo lahat ng sinasabi sa kanya. Nung witch, nagbilanggo sa kanya at nilimit ang kanyang perspective sa mundo. So ganun din ang nangyayari doon sa mga taong nakakulong ang kanilang information source sa Fox News. So June, why? How do we do that? The polarization is already happening because of that. Kaya unang-unang kailangan mawala si Trump. Kasi siya yung Hindi, diretsahan, di ba? Siya yung naglalo pang nagsindi nung lagablab ng polarization eh. Panahon ni Obama. Di ba? Nagtatalo-talo. Pero hindi yung ganyang klase. Iba yung toxicity ng discourse now eh. Tama? Feel nyo para bang iba eh. Dati pwede kayo magbagayan tungkol sa dapat bang may RH, dapat bang merong may healthcare, mga ganun-ganun. Magbabangayan kayo doon eh. Pero pag tinitira nyo na ang humanity ng bawat isa, it's so toxic. I think that leads more to polarization. So, sabi nga the truth shall set you free. Fight for what is true. And let's do our due diligence to know na kung ano yon. Kasi we sift also through the biases ng mga sources natin. Kasi makikita natin itong channel na to, ito yung angulo nila. Itong channel na to, ito yung angulo. That's their storytelling, right? Pero the facts will remain the same. And then cross-check also with ano yung Google nyo, anong sinabi ni Trump during the time ng March when the coronavirus was ano. Did he say, oh, it will just go away like magic? And it's sad kasi daming namamatay. Pag tinanong mo, bakit hindi kayo nagmamask? Eh, sabi ni Trump, hindi, wag magmask. Sabi ni Trump, mas nakakasama pa daw yan sa kalusugan natin. Sabi ni Trump, hoax yan eh. Yun ang dating. Of course, they will always say, di naman sinabi ni Trump na hoax yan eh. But yun ang dating ngayon sa ibang tao because he keeps on associating that. Now, it's the new Russia hoax. So yun ang dating sa tao. And we as gatekeepers and also sharers, let's also bear in mind that we are responsible for what we post. In the same way that Trump should also be responsible for what he retweets, what he feeds. Sabi nga, di ba, ano, you're not just somebody else's crazy uncle. Why are you sharing about this conspiracy theory? In the same way that he was sharing about that during Obama because he could not accept na isang African-American magiging presidente. Racism. Racism. It's ugly, it's bad, but it happened. And I don't know, big question nga din is, tayo bang mga Pilipino, rasista rin tayo? Meron, siguro kasi na-condition na tayo somehow ng mass media before, na black is ugly, white is beautiful, dahil matagal din tayong sa ilalim ng Kastila at Amerikano, di ba? So somehow, naapektuhan din yung, natin, yung pananaw natin gano'n. So, talking about multi-generational sharing of perspectives, even my own kids would call me up. I think I'm not racist, pero sila nagko-call out pagdating doon. Kasi mas ano sila, mas exposed sila sa other cultures and ano, di ba? Faith, tayo, mas ano pa tayo compared sa kanila. Mas, ano ba yon, limited pa yung ating exposure. So I think wow, that's our challenge. That's our challenge. So let's listen to our kids because we don't know. Sometimes we don't know we're being racist pala. Diba?
So Jel?
Yes, hi.
I wanted to follow up on your discussion about fact checking because for us, we're regular readers and gatekeepers, but what are the specific steps that you suggest we do to fact check before we post anything on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram? Are there websites?
Right.
Are there steps and all that?
If there's an article, look at the about. Di ba? Merong about us. And get to know what's behind this website. Right? See if meron ba silang major sponsors. And then, also look at ano yung mga nandoon na other news. If the way they're presenting their news is makikita mong bombastic, tabloidish, medyo do more research. Right? Don't accept that as gospel truth. Kasi alam mong, kunyari, biglang, same. They're talking about the Trump, then Obama, saying Obama is the most corrupt president ever in the United States. Tapos makikita mo yung source, ano pa yung mga ibang dire-retweet nila or ano, sinasabi nila si Michelle Obama daw ay talagang lalaki, na nag-sex change daw o hindi talaga nag-sex change. I mean, these are part of the conspiracy theories that they're raising na si Obama ay nagbabaw sa ano, na hindi Christian, yung mga ganon. Why? Because meron na tayong among Filipinos, di ba? Yung matagal ng awayan ng they call this Moro versus Christian. So natatouch din yung ganon eh. So yung pananakot, yung mga ganon. So that's one. Look at the about of each website. Ngayon, ang problema, Paano kung hindi nga website eh? Ngayon, mas ano pa nga, hindi na nagbabasa eh. Pag nakita yung balita na sensational, yun na, akala nila totoo na yun. But how do you, then you Google, ano ba yung message nito? Then Google and look for corroborating evidence. And if it's really happening, dapat i-carry na yan ng maraming news organizations eh. Diba? At saka din this, kunyari yung mga, the fake news, lalabas yun, nauuna sila because they pay for that eh. Right? There's a price for that. They pay for that. Yung mga unknown, bakit sila nauuna sa gano'n? That's part of the sponsorship. That's why we have to be extra diligent in finding out about it. It's a lot of hard work though. Di ba? Kasi ang dami mong mabagal pa yung internet, na yun. So just and then go through different news sources. Sabi nga nila ang most trusted these days NPR, National Public Radio, and then the regular ones kasi hindi yung 24/7 news cycle. Kasi this is a 24/7 news cycle, kailangan merong nangyayari palagi para hindi napapanis. Yun lang yung mo eh. And then
question
very of
from,
sensationalism.
sorry. We have a question from Monette Caransea. Go ahead. Unmute.
I cannot. Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Jel.
Hi.
Hi, Mr. Melegrito. So, ang question ko, if let's say Trump is no longer the president, do you think this way of life of fake news is already pervasive in the whole system? Will it little by little disappear, or do you think it'll continue? Because there are still a lot of people who are really pro-Trump, and they have that way. And also, what will happen to the Republican Party if he doesn't win? Will they carry? Do you think they'll carry Trump's belief system?
Yeah, Monette, that's a very good question. Let me try to answer that. I think Jel really hit on the impact of all of this fake news in terms of our trust in our institutions, right? So that's really been the insidious adverse impact of social media. We've lost trust in Congress, we've lost trust in the media, we've lost trust in the church, even our own evangelical leaders are going the way of Trump. So there is a very alarming and devastating loss of trust. So the first thing, of course, is if Trump is out of the way, then I think we will see a slow restoration of, hopefully, I'm hopeful, maybe I'm being naive, but hopefully we'll see a restoration of trust in our institutions, right? In schools, in homes, in churches, in government, in the free press. Because that's really what's damaged, our ability to use our critical thinking, as well as to engage in media literacy. Now, of course, we don't have the illusion that if Trump goes away, that this will end, right? Because there is a certain significant amount in our electorate that continues to carry this somehow this mentality. I was reading an article about how the authoritarian image appeals to a lot of people, and especially to Filipinos. They want an authoritarian figure to protect them from the gays, from the blacks, from immigrants, from Muslims. So we have a lot of work to do in unlearning, this really insidious mentality that has perpetuated, this kind of behavior. And as I said earlier, I'm glad that young people today are engaged in media literacy, teaching their peers, as well as teaching their parents and their colleagues and the community about how to distinguish, how to analyze, how to use our critical thinking, because that's really the most damaging thing that we've lost in all of this.
Hopefully also, if Biden wins, then wala na tayo dun sa extremism. Kasi Trump has pushed everybody to the extreme. It started in 2016 dun sa Republican Party nomination, di ba? Dati sila pa yung mga galit sila kay Trump. Nung nanalo si Trump, ginagawa na rin nila yung dati na sinasabi niya is always lying, is ganyan, is maligning people and all. So it was rewarded. That kind of showmanship was rewarded. We also have to admit the fact that somehow our attention span has got shortened. We want to be entertained all the time with the proliferation of all of this reality show na nagbabatuhan na ng baho nila sa buhay. And alam mo yun, shock factor.
Mm-hmm.
So siguro it's high time that we also examine ourselves. Where are we? Kasi tayo may control tsaka pamilya natin doon sa exposure natin. Then we share that. Have we been a people na kailangan palagi na i-entertain? Kaya pag dumating itong si Trump na bombastic, like pinipresent niya, ako ang the best businessman. Ayun pala, magkano lang, $750 lang pala yung binayad sa Ang daming bankruptcy. Ang daming tinatago. Hindi nilabas ang tax returns. Yung mga ganon. So that's another thing. We were shaped by the social-cultural milieu, and that's happening. And so let's go back to that, the old school way of learning, reading, verifying, and hopefully when people say, oh yeah, God, inordain daw ni God di ba naririnig niyo yung yan, nilaan ng Diyos si Trump para manalo maging presidente. This is my perspective. And this is just me. Okay, of course it happened. If you believe in God, then it happened na meron siyang basbas sa what's going on. Because I think it is like a purging for all of us. Sometimes God gives us wake-up call. Para, ano na, kailangan mauntog ka. Makita mo yung epekto ngayon para gagawa ka ngayon. As in what's happening in our own individual lives, di ba? Pag nagkakamali tayo, then kailangan matuto tayo sa pagkakamali natin. Ganun din. So hopefully, magkaroon ng, sabi ni John, we have to be also, be patient because it's gonna take longer to heal the division. Be patient. And then if we want a change, it has to begin with us. Hindi yung tayo na, pag kunyari nanalo si Biden, hindi tayo dapat yung nagmamatan, sino ba in power ngayon? Mga ganun, di ba? Hindi. Kung ano yung ayaw natin ginagawa nung who was in power and abusing that power, then kailangan wag natin gawin. Because that's the only way by which we can heal. We start with our own realm and of influence, di ba? Sphere of influence. And then let's take it a day at a time and learn from this very unfortunate chapter in our nation's history, which affects our family life, di ba? Our discourse and everything, the future of our children, the planet where we live in.
Let's have one more question. We really went over the time, but I guess it's still okay. But, any more question, comment? Number. Then we have a comment. Do you know that I read that Filipinos more than Americans trust Trump? What can we do about that? You think when Trump loses, the Filipinos will kind of change, or is it a continuous challenge for us to educate our countrymen?
Yeah, let me try to answer that, Bong, because it's not just supporting Trump. It's really our colonial legacy. And I'm glad that
Right.
to see high school students, for instance, really studying very diligently our colonial history, right? Going back to when the Spaniards, the Americans really shaped the way we look down on blacks, the way we identify with white privilege, the way we think white superiority is what will solve the world. So we come to America with all these baggages because, as Jill said, we've been conditioned, we've been bombarded with media. I mean, I used to see westerns of John Wayne, three times a week. And that's the kind of conditioning that I brought to this country is, oh, this white Americans, you know, they look down on the Indians or the blacks, the slaves. And this is what the young people today, and I'm glad that they're doing this, you know, really digging deep into our colonial history, understanding where racism comes from. Because unless we dig deep into our own history, anything we do will just be superficial, right? Even if we engage other patiently and diligently, unless we really study history and dig deep into it, we can never really truly grasp why this is happening today. And I think analyzing where we came from, how we were shaped, and how we were molded into thinking the way we are, I think that's really partly a solution to how we can best engage our peers, our community, and hopefully the next generation.
Mhm. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'd
go
like
ahead.
to respond to John, Sir John's comment about that, because in the previous months, we have tackled this particular topic of the historical context of our biases and racism and all that. And so we invite you to join Ateneans for Social Justice Face group, because we have recordings of those discussions. We were able to invite historians from different universities, and they discussed this particular topic. Very enriching and very enlightening, even for us who took history classes in college, and still we learned a lot from those discussions.
Mhm. Oh, may I also add, moving forward also, kasi ito nakukuha ko tong comment from even the community leaders here in the United States. When I write something about Trump, calling him out, they would say, why do you keep on doing that? Paano pa tayo ma-appoint for certain positions? So parang transactional.
Mm.
So again, each of us should have our own conviction pagdating doon Diba? Kung sino yung in power, chuchu-chuchu ka doon kahit alam mong mali, just because you want to be empowered. I think that's also one of the reasons kung bakit hindi kino-call out ng mga Republican supposed to be other leaders in the party, si Trump, kasi meron din silang vested interest to ride on the power and popularity of Trump, right? So when, if we continue doing this, then we're just perpetuating this sick system. So I think that's also a challenge for each one of us, di ba? Na hindi yung, ano ba yung atin dyan, di ba? And then ibahin mo bigla yung values mo. I think that's the biggest challenge, because, and that is something that we have to live and not just talk about, because our children are watching. Kita nila na, ba't ganyan ang ginawa mo? But, the best lesson that we is something that we live, not just talk about. So again, that's even a harder challenge for all of us, especially if you have set ways already, and mindset. But we need to stop perpetuating what is not fair, what is not just, what is not humane. And all of us, one way or another, may kailangang baguhin sa sarili nating sarili.
Thank you. Okay, I guess we need to wrap up now, so we won't take much time off of Ms. Gel. She still needs to write about the campaign and election and all that. So we're very thankful she joined us, and also Mr. Melegrito. Now we're preparing for new topics. So yeah, Donna, can you tell more about it for our new next Zoom event?
Are you able to see the screen?
Yep. Yes.
So the big elephant in the room is the discussion that a lot of influence in our choice of choosing Trump or Biden is dictated by our religion. So many Filipinos have decided to do single voting because they are anti-abortion and all that. But our official church, as Catholics, or whether we don't belong to the Catholic Church, the call, a pro-lifer is somebody who supports life from conception to death. That means that we cannot be selective, that only, those who are unborn, but we will not care for the homeless, the migrants, the blacks, the elderly. We can't be like that, because that is totally against Catholic social teachings. And so we have organized a Zoom event in 2 weeks. That's October 30. And we all invite you to join us again. And the title of this event is Discerning Church Guidelines on Life Issues for Catholic Voters. And I guess even if you're not Catholic, but if you identify yourself as a pro-lifer, this is for you. The event aims to provide points of reflection and discernment on making political choices according to the guidelines of the church and applying it to consistent with life issues. And so our speaker for that particular event is Father Eric M. Genilo, or Genilo. He's an associate professor at Ateneo de Manila School of Theology. So he is an expert in moral theology. So we all invite you to join us. Please register so that you will get the Zoom details of that event. I have already confirmed some theologians will be joining as participants for that event because they also want to contribute and be participative in the discussion about this. So there will be many experts who will be joining this particular event, who hopefully will be able to enlighten us and allow us to make a smart choice in the coming election. So you're all invited. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. And we are really very appreciative of your time, Jel and John. Thank you for sharing your ideas and your experience with mass media.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll post the how to register on our Facebook page, the Ateneans for Social Justice. At the same time, if you register to this event tonight, I'll ask our head to send emails to you so you get the information. It's very important because mag-election eh. So maybe if you're still thinking you haven't voted yet, this can be helpful to you. And then we will have future topics. Right now, I was just thinking about the other media, social media, which is music, arts. Maybe we can invite some people who can talk about it, how these things can influence us and all those things. Again, thank you very much, Miss Jel. Our pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. John Melegrito.
Thank you.
All the way from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much.
And urge everybody to vote.
Yes, vote.
Yes.
Yeah. Kahit sa Pilipinas, vote kayo 2022. Is that correct? Remember, 2022. Thank you so much, guys.
And also, let's also pray na magkaroon tayo ng bridge again to people that we have unfriended,
Right.
or we had bad blood with because of this, lalo na kung pamilya, di ba? So let's hopefully the decency in us, the God-loving and God-fearing in us will prevail, and we all heal together as people, as families, and as a country and as a world, right?
Thank you. Very inspiring statement.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you, Sir John.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye.
Jed, so